Tremendous leader in our community, and asked him to come and be our keynote speaker today, and he's here, and his wife Amber is here also, so we're very thankful. So let's give Lee Herndon the welcome.
Good morning, everybody. You know, those of you who know me, we're going to have some fun today. You know, when the mayor asked me to speak, I started thinking about what we're going to talk about today, and I thought, you know, I'm going to tell some tall tales from the country, and I'm going to talk about my granddaddy's Bible. You know, and I dressed up today in honor of the mayor. Normally I'd be in cowboy boots and jeans with probably a little manure on me somewhere. I think that's all right if you're an entrepreneur. I always call it entrepreneur on you. But really excited to be here, and I just appreciate the invitation. I want to thank all of you for attending this morning and giving up of your time to be in prayer and in thought and in worship today. So I think it's a really exciting time. My bride was introduced, Amber, and I want to tell you this. So we've got another celebration. On October 31st, we had another wedding anniversary. The mayor and Miss Kay celebrated number 55. So that was a round of applause. And I want to tell you, in life, we all need mentors. We all need people. We all need to be students. We all need to learn, be coachable. And I asked Mayor Baxter, I said, listen, 55 years. I said, what is your secret to success? And he said, Natty Lee, listen. He said, before Miss Kay and I got married, I sat her down. And he said, in order for this marriage to work, I will make all of the big decisions, and you will make all of the little decisions. And he said, and I'll have you know, after 55 years of marriage, there have been no big decisions. So now we know the key to success for the Baxters. You know, I always like people to know a little bit about the speaker and you know, where the person comes from. I appreciate you reading what my office sent you. But really, truly, I grew up in Clarksville. I'm a mountain boy. I'm from the River Valley. I spent my time in the creeks and streams and sneaking off to places that my mother would have probably had a heart attack and died if she knew what I was doing. I was one of those kids that would go out and pull up those surveyor sticks, you know, that had the orange flags tied on them so we could fight in swords, and the person that won the most got the most little orange ribbons. And I'm sure those surveyors are like, what just happened here in Johnson County? And so I have some good roots there. I was a Clarksville Panther, graduated, went over to Tennessee to play some football, and stayed over there for many years, where I was back on my family farm on my mother's side of the family for years. And so I really have two sets of families. My mother's set, my grandfather and grandmother on my mother's side, and my grandfather and my grandmother on my father's side. And both of those, along with my parents and the people around me, like you folks here today, have made me who I am. And you know, when I look out at this gathering of people today, I think about something. You know what we call a gathering of quails? A covey. You know, and what would be a gathering of seagulls? That's the easy one, isn't it? A flock. What would be a gathering of geese? A gaggle. What would be a gathering of owls? Well, my wife said a hootenanny, but that's close. A parliament. Think about that. A wise-looking bird. It's a parliament. What's a gathering of crows? Murder. Thank you. And what would today be? So as I look around and I see our elected officials, I see regal people, I see prominent people, it makes me think of our bald eagle. It makes me think of something majestic. If you've ever watched them in flight, or especially during mating season as they tumble and twist and their aeronautical feats and the things they accomplish, for something so majestic, what would you call a gathering of eagles? Close, but no. A convocation. So today, this is a convocation. This is a convocation of eagles. It's not a flock. It's not a herd. It's not a covey. This is a convocation. This is a glorious occasion for all of us to come together and really be thoughtful and really dig deep into our spirit and think about leaders and our country. And I'm very, very proud to be here in a part of the country where we can stand up here and talk about God, and where we can pray, and where we're bold, and where we're not fearful of that. I'd like to tell you a little story. So back on the farm on my mother's side, we had a little pond. The little pond was maybe half the size of this side of the court. And as a kid, I would take a rock, and in Tennessee, in my younger years, moved here when I was 9. So before I was 9, I was on the farm in Tennessee, and we didn't have a lot of rocks over there. Somebody we were talking today said, what do cows eat over here? Well, our cows in Arkansas eat rocks. Not really. So I'd take a pebble or a dirt clod or something, and I'd throw it in the pond, and it'd go kapoosh. And what would happen? Ripples would spread out. And I was fascinated with that. And I would throw another one, and it would ripple out. And then I would get another one, and it would ripple out. And before you know it, I'd be grabbing stuff and dry cow patties and corn cobs and everything I could find, throwing it in the pond, and creating all of these splashes and ripples and rolling out and trying to roll that water out of the pond. So today, as I speak to you, it's not to you, it's through you. Most of the things I'm going to share with you today, we already know in some shape, fashion, or form. I'm going to shape it in my way and in my language of things that I've learned. But we're pebbles in the pond of life. And everything we do is a kapoosh, and it ripples out. Good or bad will be repeated. And so today, as I share with you, I want you to think about how we launch and we become those ripples. So I went on to Tennessee to play some ball at a little Christian college in Jackson, Tennessee, and I was blessed to get my education paid for. And I went over there, and my grandfather Herndon retired to come watch me play football. And he was my spiritual mentor. He was a preacher on the side and would travel to churches where a church might not have a preacher, and he would fill in for a while. And he was also an elder in the Church of Christ. And as I would listen to him, he was my spiritual mentor. He was that person that I gravitated to and I listened to. He was also the vice president of Life of Georgia Insurance for the region. And later on went on to be vice president of Old South Insurance. He was born in 1925. Grew up on a tobacco farm in western Kentucky, same county where Jesse James was born. Quit school at 8th grade, went on, was self-educated, and had a great career. So here he moves to Tennessee to watch me play ball. So my freshman year, 1987, I got really lucky and ended up by the third or fourth game working my way into a starting role, and so he got to see me play. Well, in 1988, in February, he died of heart troubles at 62. And that was a hard time for me. That was, I'll never forget. I got the phone call, and I'd just seen him. And it was just, he's here, he's gone. And so, we all know when we have somebody in our life and we can't just pick up the phone and go, hey, what's going on? It's a strange thing, isn't it? Because we always have those moments, hey, I'm going to call, and it's like, can't do that. So life went on, and I moved forward and just went on with my career. And in 2002, I was a college athletics director. So I also have a background in higher education, senior vice president of a university, and I was an athletics director of a university in Tennessee. And I had started a company on the side, and I was working that company, and I was in a moment where I was really stressed, and I was really tired. So my dad, if you can picture a tall, lean cowboy, he looks like Sam Elliott. And those of you from this area, I don't know if you remember the Southern Flames. My dad was the lead singer of the Southern Flames, and they toured with Rodney Millsap and Tammy Wynette and George Jones. Well, that was my dad. And so here he calls me on the phone. He said, hey, son, can you come down tonight? Let's deer hunt in the morning. I was at a basketball game. I was like, Dad, I've got games tonight. It's going to be late. And he lives up near Loretta Lynn's in Humphreys County in Tennessee, exit 143 if you're headed toward Nashville on I-40. And I thought, well, Dad never invites me to go hunting, so maybe I should do that. So I go up, and it's a pouring down rain night. My dad's a Marlboro Red man, smokes about 2 packs a day. He doesn't anymore, but he did then. And so we go out, it's about 4 in the morning, and we go over the hills, and we're up there, and it's pouring down, and he gets out, and he's got his leather hat on, and he walks around and opens the door of the Pathfinder, and he lights a cigarette, and I can still see the little cigarette light, and it's pouring down rain. I'm like, Dad, we're not doing this, are we? He said, you just need to follow this little trail, go over the hill, through the valley, over the hill, through the valley, and there's going to be a little tree. And in that tree, you're going to see your deer stand, and that's where you'll sit. Well, I come from a hunting family where you hunt till noon, you come out, you eat, you go back to one, stay till dark. So I go over the hill, through the valley, and there it is. It's this giant stand in this little tree, and I get in it, and the wind starts blowing, and I'm going like this. And I'm thinking, every deer up here is going to see me and know, what is that guy doing? He's lost his mind. So about 8:30, 9 o'clock, I get out, and I go back, and I get in the truck. I'm soaking wet, and I know I can't start the vehicle because Dad's going to come out and go, hey, what are you doing? And so I started digging around for napkins, a little cheese cracker. You know, McDonald's hamburgers are good a year after you put them under the car seat. So I'm trying to find anything I can. And I reach into the door over here. Now, this is 2002. When did I tell you my grandfather passed away? 1988. And I reach in the door, and I feel something. It's a book. And I pull it out. It's a little Bible. It's about this big. And I'm like, wow. And on the cover of the little red leather Bible was gold leaf printed E.D. Herndon. There's 3 Eddies, by the way. That's why I'm Eddie Lee. Granddad's Ed. Dad's Eddie. I'm Eddie Lee. I'm going back to Ed if you want to shorten my name. So I'm looking at this Bible, and this emotion just came over me. Oh. And so I'm drying off my hands, and I open it up, and on the inside front cover, he's taken a little poem, and he's taped it to the inside, and it's entitled, "What If God Should Go on Strike?" Beautiful poem. I'll share with you another day. And then I opened it up, and this is one of these moments. 17 points on leadership according to Christ. It was one of his sermons. Right in the front of his Bible, in his handwriting. Whoa. All these conversations that I'd had with Granddad growing up, and now I'm about to have another one because he wrote in that Bible. And so as I was looking through it, I got so excited. And the first thing, point number 1, man's obligation. Man has a special talent per God's gift. Per 1 Peter 4:10. As each one has received a gift, minister it to one another as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. Whoa! That was number 1. And so I started thinking, we all have different talents, don't we? We all have different gifts. Imagine, me in athletics, my tallest player was 7'2". If you visit my office in Fort Smith, I have one of his shoes in my office. It's huge. And he signed it. Sabu Mabasso went on to play for the Utah Jazz. What if I had 5 7'2" guys? I wouldn't be very good, would I? I need short guys, fast guys, tall guys, shooters, guys that can be under the goal. We're all God, I love this song. All God's creatures. All God's creatures. And, some sing high, some sing low, some sing out loud on the telephone wire, but some just clap their hands or paws or anything they got now. Thank you for not trying to sing, Eddie Lee. Okay. I started to. But man's obligation. Wow, number 2. A desire to lead, not for clenched-fisted service. Think about this, leaders in the room. Not for clenched-fisted service, but for open hand of service. Mark 10:35 through 45, and in verse 43, and this is to me the servant leader, whoever desires to become great among you should be your servant. Thank you. Amen. So that was just hitting me. All those things were rushing through, and I was thinking about, okay, as a servant leader, attributes of a good leader. What are some attributes of a leader? Every leadership class I speak to, and I speak to a ton, college, high school, junior high, and I always take an index card and I have them write on one side of the card, what is something you revere in a leader that you know? It can be mom, dad, it can be a ball player, it can be a teacher, coach, grandfather, and they write down on that card, and then I have them flip it over and I have them write their greatest concern in our community that they see. That's another talk. But it's really cool. I just sat with 146 kids in Greenwood, got 146 cards. I might need to give you that data, but it'll cost you a big donation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But think about it. So what's one thing about a leader? Honesty and integrity. So I had a chocolate lab. I'm a duck hunter. Any duck hunters in here? I had a chocolate lab. My favorite dog. Sleep beside the bed. Go with me in the truck. That dog would kill himself to retrieve a duck. Just my best buddy. And, brought him up from a puppy. His name was Harley. Red River Harley. And that's, anyway, that's another story. So, Red River Harley. And one night I came home and I looked out the back, and he's in the backyard. He's tossing something up and catching it and shaking it. And he'd toss it up, catch it, shake it. I thought, what in the world? And I went out there, and he had a rabbit. Well, guess what? My neighbor raised show rabbits. Now, he had a soft mouth, and so he didn't tear ducks up when he'd bring them back to you. He was good. He'd bring it back softly, and so you could mount them or whatever. He was trained that way. And this rabbit was muddy and tore up, and I panicked. I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So like any good citizen, I thought, well, before I take it back to her and tell her, I'm going to clean it up. So I went in the house, and has anybody ever shampooed a rabbit? So you ladies with fine curly hair, you know how hard it is to comb through that? So then I had to put conditioner on it. So I put conditioner on this Big Show rabbit after I washed it, and then I had to get the blow dryer, and I'd brush and shake it out. No, don't tell her I did that. And so I got it back looking brand new, and I thought, okay. And this is where something bad happened. I decided instead of going over there and telling her rabbit died, I was just going to put it back in the cage. And so I went back over there and opened the cage, and I laid him down, and I put his little hands like this, and I laid his head, and I kind of just did a little smile, and flopped his ears out. And I thought, she'll just think he peacefully died of old age. So the winter passed, and the spring came, and she's out there, and she's breaking up whatever leaves are left, and I'm in the yard, and she said, Mr. Herndon, Mr. Herndon. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, I want to talk to you about something. I said, sure. She goes, something tragic has happened. And I said, well, what's happened? She said, did you know one of my show rabbits died? I said, no, ma'am, I didn't. I'm so sorry to hear that. She goes, well, that's not the worst of it. She said, I had that show rabbit for 15 years. It was my best rabbit. And she said, it died, and I buried it in the backyard, and we had a little funeral. And she said, did you know somebody dug that thing up, washed it, and brought it back and put it in the cage? Oh, man. You know, so we think about those attributes of leaders, and we learn lessons from other people, don't we? Well, then, you know, I keep reading through the Bible. A leader, now look, think about this, guys. A leader should already have a flock of followers before they're anointed. Have you ever seen that self-proclaimed? They just want to be the leader. Why? Because I just want to be the leader. That's a big one. We could have a whole sermon on that. Number 4, the real leader, not the power seeker, but the one willing to serve others by examples. Mark 10:45, John 13:3-16. A good father, one who sets a good example, and not just a strong authoritarian. Number 5, and I talk on this one a lot, and many of you may have heard this little talk I give. Number 5, opportunity plus ability equals responsibility. Okay, if I have a gift, back to the beginning, if I have a gift, if I have something the Lord has given me, and I, you know, people want me to sing, I'll preach in church, I'll say a prayer, you know, I've never seen a microphone I don't love, but, you know, singing, maybe I don't feel that's my gift, but, you know, I have been asked to lead singing before, and I did, because I feel like, okay, if I have a talent, and I come from a singing family, I better do it. That's tough. But when we have a gift and we have an opportunity plus an ability, guys, there's a responsibility. And we find our passion. Number 6, leading must feed on God's Word. We got to know the Word. We got to do the Word. And we've got to feed off of that. Number 7, and guys, I'm sitting in this pickup truck soaking wet, warm with excitement and love as I'm reading this. Leaders must not be afraid. And I think of the mayors, I think of our judges in here, I think of our representatives. When I see this, and in the job that I have, you know, I'm very preachy. And you guys that hear me speak, I preach it. Not as much as I'm preaching today, but I preach it from United Way. And I want you to think about it. Leaders must not be afraid to take a position, to make a decision, to challenge political authority, and to challenge movements that are against God's will. We don't do that enough sometimes. Number 8, a leader can and will unite his team. A leader can and will unite his team. We can't, and I love this because this was written back in the 70s. It can't always be done with group announcements. What's a group announcement now? It's an email blast. Everybody just wants to send an email blast and expect everybody to respond. If you try to get me with email, we are doomed. Those of you who know me, you better call my cell phone or tell Mitzi. All right? Okay? Because then it gets in my ear. But if you send me an email, things can't always be done from a bulletin or an announcement or an email. It's a one-on-one. Ooh, I'm getting excited. Number 9, leaders, and leaders, and how many points did I say? 17, so we're getting there, okay? Leaders can't give up at failures or disappointments. So everybody ever heard of the Great Zambini? The Great Zambini was a great wrestler, and he had this hold called the pretzel hold, and nobody had ever beaten him. The guy that was supposed to wrestle him the next day, he got sick, and so they had to draw a guy from an undercard who had been defeated many times and had many failures, and they put him in there in the ring. They told him, just stay away from him for a while. He'll eventually catch you. He'll eventually get you in the pretzel hole, but you'll get your check. So he gets out, and the announcers are announcing, and the Great Zambini has got him in the corner, and they're rolling him around to the side. And so if you can picture the big old wrestling match, and everybody's talking, and the young man, and So all of a sudden the great Zambini, he gets him and he ties him up in the pretzel hold. And the great Zambini's got him in the pretzel hold, and it looks like this could be it for the young man. And so then all of a sudden this burst of energy just comes and boom! He just gets out of the pretzel hold, jumps on top of him, they count out the great Zambini, and the young guy wins. They hold his hands up. They're interviewing him afterwards. They said, "Oh my goodness, you've lost so many matches, but you beat this great champion. How in the world did you do this?" He said, "Well, I'll tell you what. He got me in that pretzel hold, and he said, I was just about to pass out, and I looked up and I saw this big toe just dangling in my face, and he said, and I just bit it as hard as I could." And he said, "And you will be amazed what you can do when you bite your own big toe." You know, even in failure, we got to rebound. Number 10, leaders have headaches because they face what? People. Do people give us headaches? Oh my gosh. A, the know-it-alls, the fearful, the negatives, the critical, the selfish, the stingy. We face that, don't we? Number 11, leaders watch for problems. This is big. You guys do this, and we need to be more vigilant with it. A person with an attitude. You know, I got a lot of skills and I got a lot of deficiencies, but one of my things is reading people. I've just been blessed with that gift. I can feel when something's not right. I can see body language. I recognize that. You know, part of being a coach, I think, hones that skill. Being around people, working with children, we can see it. A person strewing discord. That's my grandfather's language. We have to be vigilant of somebody who's strewing that, and we have to deal with it head on. Number 12, leaders will not become confused. Pastors in the room, work with me on this. Satan's best friends are confusion and fear. Man, I was reading that, I was going, whoa! How many times have I seen things happen? The flood hit. 500-year flood. What is the first thing in a disaster that happens is confusion. Even in a tornado, we hear the sirens, woo, and then it hits, boom! Power's out, lights out. It's somewhat a disoriented feeling. And then what overcomes us with that? After that is fear. Leaders have to help the flock overcome that. Number 13, leaders don't push around their weight. Oh, let's think about that for a second. Pushing is a rear job. Leading is a pull-along job. Wow, we're pulling along. I'm loving this. 14, and by the way, my number was 14. My dad was 14. 14 was a magical moment to me. And remember, I told you I was very stressed. I had started my own company. I was working as a young college athletics director. I was also the AD for the Mid-South Conference. I had a lot of different things going on. I had young children. My dad, Sam Elliott, Lee Herndon, reached out to me and asked me to go on a Wild West shoot-'em-up deer in a hurricane. And here I am, stressed out, sitting in a truck, and I get to 14. And I'm talking right to you, leaders. Leaders must rest often. Jesus did. I think we take that for granted sometimes. Why? Because we're trying. We're working hard. We're always on call. We're expected to be everywhere. We're expected to be front and center. We're expected to be out there, out there, out there, out there. And if we are all the time, as my grandmother Jules said, we're haggard, not Merle. I asked my grandmother one time, I said, haggard, like Merle Haggard? No, honey, not like Merle Haggard. We get stressed, we get frazzled, and when a leader is frazzled and stressed and people see the wear and tear and they see the emotion and they see the tiredness, it's hard to follow that guy. That's right. I want the airline pilot that's going into the storm that says, who cares that your seat is a flotation device? We're making it! I don't want the guy going, well, if you'll look under your seat right now, I have a nice life vest for you in case we do go down in the water, but I hope we don't. I don't want that guy. I want the guy to, you know what? Throw the vest out, we're landing. Yes. And we have to be rested to be able to do that. I know my staff knows this. When I get to a certain place in time, when I'm just up to here, before I just pop on somebody, because I can be a linebacker, that's what I played, and I do have a little bit of fire in me, I go to the lake. I get my kayak and I go to Ponca. I go grow some flowers, I pick a pumpkin, I do some jam. I work with my bees. That's a whole nother side, sorry. Number 15, leaders need to be teachable. Need to be teachable. Go to someone for consultation. Find a mentor. You know who my mentor is in nonprofit? He was my Boys and Girls Club director. You probably know him, Jerry Gladwell. He took me on in 3rd grade in Clarksville. 3rd grade to 6th grade. And he has living proof that I scored 36 points one night in a 6th grade game. I need a plaque for that. Number 16, leaders' priority must be to please God. First, middle, last. And number 17, leaders in the church, and I think in life, must not be presidential. They must not be like the head of a business or, mighty with a big stick. And they have to listen to everyone's ideas, not just their own. And listen to ideas even if they aren't good. Mark, you ever heard any ideas that just weren't good and you listen? Every day. Every day. Guys, wrapping up. My grandfather said there's 4 chief qualifications. Number one of a leader is being submissive. John 4:34. Not our own will, but God's will, submissive to each other and in each other in opinions. And opinion matters. Number 2, we got to weep with those who weep because of love for a brother. If we look at John 11:35, Jesus wept. I saw one of my friends got the worst whooping of his life at the Church of Christ in Clarksville because we all had to do worship service on certain Sunday nights, and his daddy was an elder. And I say he got a whooping. I didn't see what happened outside the building, but he came in with a red face, and he didn't want to participate. So he got up there, and his scripture was, Jesus wept. That's funny to me. I said he wept. Don Allen Frost wept. Then the Jews said, see how he loved him? They saw that. Leaders need not be tough, but be Christ-like and weep over the sins of the world. I know you guys do that. Number 3, must be gracious. John 4:27. The story of the woman at the wall, I won't read it today. You can read it later. And then number 4, leaders must control their anger. Boy, isn't that tough sometimes. Don't we just want to I got a broken vat in my office. No, John Coppola broke it in an FCA event, but sometimes I pretend like I did. We must control that anger. Much of who I am came from my grandparents and my mom and dad and those folks around me. And, when I surround myself with people, I look for 3 characteristics. And I've hired a lot of coaches. I've hired a lot of employees. You don't hire volunteers, but you are hiring volunteers. Number 1 is character. You either have it or you don't by the time you're an adult. Number 2 is work ethic. Find me somebody that's a hard worker. They're hard worker at church. They're hard in the kitchen, landscaping, working with their kids, leading, singing, their job, being a parent. They're hard workers. Give me that person. And 3rd, which is least important unless they're operating on me, is skill. I can teach someone a skill. Final thoughts. So fast forward to 2015, okay? So I got the call. Had a nephew that works for RVS Bank, called and said, hey, would you be interested in coming to Arkansas? At the time, I was president and CEO of United Way of Western Tennessee. I said, I might be. What do you got? So we had Burton Weiss from USA Truck call me. Steve Griffin from RVS Bank called. Lavon Morton from ArcBest. And they got me on the phone and asked if I'd be interested in coming over here. And I started looking at it. So we went through the interview process. I accepted the job, and I came in on February 14th of 2015. On February 15th, it was a Sunday, I'm getting ready for church, going to meet my staff on the 16th. And my mom called screaming and crying on the phone, 8:30 in the morning. I was like, Mom, calm down. What is going on? And she's yelling, fire. I said, Mom, just get out of the house. Are you out of the house? It's going to be okay. And she said, it's not my house, it's your house. I'm like, well, everybody's gone but the dog, so just check on my dog. And so the house burned to the ground. Here, the good news was that, let's put it this way, USA Truck offered me a moving bonus. They're just going to move me over here. Well, the good news was I only had 3 duffel bags, so I didn't have to pack a thing. I got my wish. I remember even saying, Lord, I am so dreading packing up. Well, Lord, I didn't mean that. I had an elder in the church one time. He said, don't pray for patience. Read Job. You ever heard anybody say that? Well, I had 3 duffel bags. So the fire had cooled down. I immediately put the truck in the wind to head back to Tennessee. I was talking to the fire chief, and he told me what had happened. We lived on our family farm, an old country house, and my son and his buddies were going through the house, and I said, hey, and actually Ben called me because my son Brody just wasn't wanting to talk at the moment, and I understand. So Ben, my son's best friend, was on the phone. I said, hey Ben, do me a favor. I said, can you picture where the bedroom is? And he said, yeah. I said, walk down there. I said, just walk down there, and I want you to look for something. He said, okay. This was a big moment. He walks in the bedroom. I said, you see something? He goes, oh my gosh, Eddie Lee. I didn't even have to say it. He goes, there's a Bible in the dresser. And my grandfather's, everything was torched. And on this piece of furniture that was partially, it was clumped down, was my grandfather's Bible. Amen. And last night, thinking about this, I got it out. Now it's burnt to a crisp on the cover. And I opened it up, and Amber and I were looking at it. And I was just remembering my notes and my thoughts for today. But what a powerful thing. Now think about this. As a kid, my mentor of Saraville was my grandfather Herndon, Ed Herndon, who I, from a spiritual standpoint, had so many talks about his leadership and God and the Bible. And then he passed away early in my life, and I was like, oh, why was he snatched right there when I'm 18, 19 years old? And he dropped everything to come be with me, him and my grandmother, while I was going to school to watch me play ball. And then in 2001 or 2, I get him back in his little Bible. And in 2015, everything burns, but I still had that. Amen. Wow. Well, thanks for letting me share that story with you today, because that's a big one, and we all have big ones in our lives. And I hope these little 17 points that we'll pray about them, we'll think about them, we'll reshape them for our own self. And here's my final thoughts. What's the first thing a leader should put on in the morning when he gets out of bed? A smile. A smile. You know, some people are like, oh my gosh, I got to go to the mayor's prayer breakfast. I got to put the coffee on. I got to go. It's so early, but it's not as early as Fort Smith. Thank you. I may be there at 5:30 in the morning. I hadn't been to that one. Well, we wake up and put a smile on our face. I can't wait to get to First Assembly Church, and I can't wait to be with my brethren and pray over the community. And every single Monday, I cannot wait to get to United Way. Amen. And that's the way, if we just feel that before we go to bed. Now, Amber can tell you I'm not always like that, but I try. Number 2, be kind, even in adversity. Normally, when I talk to kids, I show a scene from Roadhouse, and I do cut out the bad words. But Roadhouse, Patrick Swayze's in there, and he goes, if somebody is rude, be nice. If they get on the table, get them down, but be nice. If you break their face, walk them to the car, but be nice. Be strong and constant and when necessary. Because we're Christians doesn't mean we're weak. We're strong. God's mighty. We have to make a stand. Discipline when discipline's necessary. People appreciate it sooner or later. Listen. We have to be listeners, not hearers. Listeners. Listen. You know, people are so busy thinking about what they're going to say next that they can't even hear what you say. And I'm guilty of that. I drift off. Somebody will say, and the Lord and the hellfire and the brimstone. I'm like, did I leave the iron plugged in? That's just human nature, but focus. Focus and listen when people talk. And then give grace. My last thing. You hear leadership stuff talked about in all these leadership categories, but to me, one of the greatest things we're missing in families, in churches, in community, is the ability to forgive. The ability when somebody wrongs you to go to them and say, hey, let's talk about this. Now, I can't make somebody change, and you can't make them change, but we must give them the opportunity. And for us to move forward and get those barnacles off of us and have that energy that we need to have to be leaders, we must have grace and forgive. And it's not an excuse for somebody to continue to cross the line. It's not an excuse for somebody to steal my lunch money every single day. That's not right. But when there's a family issue or community, we must work through this process. Yep. And we must forgive. I'm going to leave you with this. So there was a guy out in the woods, and he didn't believe in God. And he wasn't a Christian. And he's walking through the woods, and all of a sudden, you know how they are, these black bears up here. And I'll tell you next time about my first black bear hunt, by the way. I got one 18 paces with my bow, but it's a real good story. Black bears don't just chase you and you lay down and pretend like you're dead. They will eat you. Grizzly bears, you play like you're dead, and they might just kick you around like a stuffed animal and go on. Black bears will not. So don't play dead. This guy's walking through the woods, and this bear comes out of nowhere and attacks him. Gets him down on the ground. He's got his claw in his chest. He's about to just rip him to pieces, and the guy screams out, "Oh my God!" But when he did, the wind stopped blowing, the trees stopped moving, the water stopped flowing, and it was complete dead silence and stillness. Complete. The bear's frozen, putting his weight on him. The gentleman says, "Oh my." He said, "I've never believed in you, Lord. I'm probably not going to believe in you after this. But I'd just like to ask you something. Since we're here, would you make this bear into a Christian?" Well, all of a sudden the wind started blowing, the trees started moving, the water started flowing. The bear got up and just walked off. Looking at the guy. Walked over here. The guy standing over here just dusted himself off. And the bear's looking confused. And the bear just got down on one knee. And he put those big old paws together and he bowed his head and he said, "Dear Lord, I'd just like to thank you for this meal you prepared." Well, guys, I'm a believer and I know you're believers too. And I believe in Mayor Baxter and I believe in you. And I am so proud to be a humble servant in this community and have leaders to stand and follow like Mayor Baxter. And when I see him, I put him right at the top. And I'm so honored today, and I'm so proud, and thank you, pastors, for the prayers and the continued prayers for this community and what you mean. And Mayor Baxter, it's just such an honor to be able to speak today. So God bless you. Thank you.
Now, you told us that you wanted a plaque for, your, what is it, 36 points or something like that?
Oh, yeah, the boys, 6th grade boys.
Yeah.
Boys club.
Well, I've got a plaque for you. It's not, for that, but I tell you what, you scored a lot more than 36 points today, don't y'all think so? This plaque is Mayor Gary Lee Baxter presents Eddie Lee Herndon with this key to our city.
Wow.
That's not all.
And there's more.
For every leader, there's one thing that I keep in my office all the time, and it is an elephant.
Oh.
And the reason I keep the elephant in is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. There's no project, nothing too hard that you cannot accomplish, but just take it one step, one bite at a time. So I want you to put this elephant where you want to, but always remember, you can always do everything, take it one step at a time.
Thank you, brother.
God bless you.